So if you've got the ingredients list and the recipes, we are focusing on the Mediterranean diet this week, which I'm sure Amy knows more about, has a lot of like controversy about it being, you know, from this study of 7 nations or whatever, continents and all different kinds of things telling us that this was the way that everybody should eat. And whether or not that's true, it is an extremely healthy diet, is extremely good for us, extremely plant-based, lots of really good dairy, lots of good proteins, not a lot of saturated stuff. So whether or not it's the perfect diet for everyone, I don't think anyone can say that. Amy can chime in more about that, but it is a great healthy way of life. The Mediterranean cuisine, Mediterranean food, things from that part of the world are great. And studies have shown that people from that part of the world that eat lots and lots of whole grains and vegetables and healthy dairy like yogurt, they live a really long time. So we are going to focus on that this week because it's some of my favorite food. It's some of the best food. It's really tasty. You can, like we usually do every week, you can mix and match a lot of these items. So you don't have to eat the same plate of salmon, quinoa, and vegetables every single day. There's a lot of things that you can play around with for dinner and lunch. So I'm going to get right kind of
down. The U.S., I don't know if you can hear me very well, but the U.S. News and World Report has they rank diets every year. And the Mediterranean diet has been ranked #1 many consecutive years now. So definitely a healthy way to eat.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have a lot of really good stuff to say about these ingredients. I'm going to just kind of get down to the cooking, which everyone can watch. But this is all pretty easy. When there's anything that I need to tell you, I'm going to season it all with salt and pepper. I'm going to warm up my pan with the oil and get my sear going, skin side down. It's all based on the recipe that I sent you. We always try to do the skin side down if you have skin on your fish, because then you get a really nice crispy sear, and then it can finish in the oven. So just like anything else, I'm gonna ha-ha my pan. So with that, if you are new here with me today, I heat the pan first. Then I add a little bit of oil, and then I heat the oil up, and then once the oil is warm, then I add in the food. You don't want to add in your food to cold oil. You don't want to add a bunch of oil to a cold pan. It will take a long time to heat up. So you start off with that ha-ha process, and it helps you to get a really nice saute. I'm just going to sprinkle this again with salt and pepper on the flesh side. The skin has a good amount of flavor, so I don't really think that I'm going to season that too much, although you can always put pepper on both sides. Tasty. I've just got about a tablespoon, maybe 2 of oil in the pan. That's nice and hot now, and I'm going to add in my fish. So I'm going to use some tongs. Ta-da! Meanwhile, while this is cooking, I don't know, Amy, what's the benefit? Like, what did they say about the Mediterranean diet is so good for us?
Well, so it's usually quite high in vegetables, right? And lean meats, especially fish that are high in omega-3 fatty acids. Nutrient dense, a lot of antioxidants through the I use a lot of olive oil, so that's also a good saturated fats. So it tends to be a diet that's low in saturated fat, high in those monounsaturated fat, fruits and vegetables.
All of the good things. So I brought my pan on a medium heat. You don't want to get it too high, like a medium high or high is too high, because then the skin is actually going to char and it's going to cook too fast. It's going to kind of shrink up and shrivel. You want to let it render out some of the natural fats. And so a medium heat is plenty hot. And then once you get a good rendering on the skin and it's got some good golden brown crispiness going on, then you're going to flip it over and leave it on the other side just for a couple of minutes. That's why we're going to be putting it into the oven. Anytime that you can do meal prep where you're finishing things in the oven and moving on to the next step makes your meal prep more efficient and practical, and you're done a lot faster and it's a lot less boring for you. So this is almost to the point where I'm going to flip it. I can tell because it's moving around on its own. You can see how it's not sticking to the pan. If the skin was still sticking, then it wasn't done rendering. So now that it's moving around, I can tell that it's probably ready to flip. Yeah. So you've got a really nice golden honey brown crispiness all the way around those edges. We're not seasoning this with anything except salt and pepper so that it is really, really light and really healthy, and you can use it for lots of different things throughout the week. If it was swimming in like butter, like lemon and garlic and capers, that's very traditional flavor for chicken piccata, for example, but that's got a lot of butter in it, which is okay sometimes, but if this had been cooked with all of that stuff in it, then it's going to get soggier throughout the week, and it's not going to be as easy to mix and match. This way, so I'm going to turn that off now. It's gotten a good sear on one side, but it's going to finish in the oven. So I don't want to completely finish it on this side, or else it'll get overdone when I put it in the oven. I've got my oven on 350, just a regular oven, so it can finish kind of gently. You don't want to dry it out. It should only take maybe 5 more minutes to cook all the way through. It depends on how fat or thick the pieces of fish that you're cooking. Some fish like halibut or like a whitefish, those are really, really big, thick, meaty fish. You need to cook those for much longer than salmon. Salmon's a nice thin fillet. But that whole process, that's it. This is going to be really nice. You can have like flaked salmon on your salad. You can make a salmon sandwich, like chicken salad, but salmon salad with like this Greek yogurt dressing. You can not dress it at all. You can make a little niçoise salad with salmon out of it, completely kind of different style, but you already have your salmon cooked off. So it's really versatile when you just light olive oil, salt and pepper, and then your sauce, which we're gonna make now, is gonna have all of the flavor, tons and tons of like really hit you in the face kind of flavors. So you don't really need everything to be cooked into the fish because then you can't use it for as many different things. So, sorry, over here.
And the salmon is great. It's one of those cold water fatty fishes that have those high omega-3s. There's not a whole lot. Most fishes aren't all that high in omega-3s, but salmon, tuna, mackerel, herring, sardines, anchovies, a lot of the ones that I don't eat very often, but I do love salmon.
I would say that a lot of people don't eat those very often, even though they're actually the most sustainable too for the environment. Those small bony fish, that's really what we should be eating more of. That's in terms of fishing, fishing issues that are going on. But there are a lot of, if you just kind of pay attention to where your fish is coming from, and if it's farmed, where it's farmed, or how it's farmed, and if it's not preferably wild, but from a sustainable resource, it's, I know that depending on where you buy your fish, that can kind of make a difference. If you go to a good fish store, Santa Monica Seafood, one of those kind of places, Fish King in Glendale, it's going to be really good, sustainable, good quality fish. So this sauce is really what kind of makes the fish its own dish. When you just want to have a nice dinner of like fish and quinoa or something like that, then this sauce is where the love comes from. But we're making it about 10 times healthier than the traditional kind of piccata sauce, which is entirely butter. And then other versions of this kind of sauce which use sour cream. We're using our non-fat Greek yogurt, which is my favorite substitution for anything that would normally be made with like sour cream or mayonnaise. Throw in some Greek yogurt instead, and you're not only taking away bad things, but you're adding in good things. So it's a really self-explanatory recipe, but we're going to go ahead and make it here. Let's see, I will move my little camera. Excuse me.
Yeah, the Greek yogurt's going to give you a lot of protein there and some calcium. So yeah, it's a great choice.
And then all of the things that we're mixing into it just make the flavor like out of this world. I'm actually going to turn that oven off now. That 5 minutes that it was in there was long enough. I know that the oven is still hot, so it's going to stay in there for another couple of minutes. It's just so when I get this sauce finished, while I've been chit-chatting a little bit too much. So this recipe, really, really straightforward. We're doing a half a cup of the Greek yogurt. I'm making the full batch of this sauce because not only does it go really great on this salmon, it goes really great on chicken throughout the week. If you have just a chicken breast and you want to add that into your meal prep, it goes really well just with all of the roasted veggies. So that medley that I've put on this week's menu of cauliflower, tomatoes, and broccolini, just chop it all up and roast it at 400. Olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then put a little dollop of this sauce and kind of mix it in after it's been roasted. It takes it out of this world. It's so good. This sauce is really amazing. We want the juice and the zest of one whole lemon. The lemon is really key here. It's where most of the flavor and the capers. It's a lemon caper sauce. Also the garlic. So when you're zesting and juicing the lemon, always try to remember to zest it first. You can cut it in half and juice it and then go, oh dang. And then try to awkwardly zest your cut in half lemon and then it's painful. You might actually hurt yourself. So try to always remember to zest your lemon first. And then we're just gonna use the same one for juice. The zesting. You just wanna go pretty much one time across the racks. If your zester is not as sharp, maybe you drag it across twice. But once you've gone down to that off-white yellow pith, you don't want to keep zesting it. Just the very outer bright yellow layer of lemon zest is all that we want. Otherwise, it starts to get very bitter. Very bitter. Totally changes the dimension of the food, so that's not what we want. We want to get all of that zest off there. You just tap it out. And I'm going to just use my hands to squeeze the lemons. But it has seeds, right? So this is the trick. You can try to put it down, squeeze it through your hand, and hold all the seeds. My skin is a little dry for that. That's a little too much lemon juice action. So I hold the lemon up and then squeeze it. And if any of the seeds do try to come out, they're just kind of held in my hand. You see how that happens? It's a little bit easier for me than trying to like catch everything that way. Plus I only get the lemon juice on the palm of my hand. So it's a little bit less painful. But really, however you can squeeze out the most juice is going to be the best way for you to do that. Those little bar squeezers or juicers are really great to have. If you have juice, lemon juice already squeezed, like a bottle of lemon juice, that's fine. But you really do want the lemon zest flavor in this. It's really going to be the bright, fresh lemon stuff. Okay, then you would add your garlic. I don't have garlic here today. I thought I left some here last week, and unfortunately it's not here. So you're going to add in a clove of garlic. I'm sure you can picture what that would look like. And then we're going to add in our capers. Capers are delicious, and they're kind of a flavor unique to themselves. You can substitute for capers with green olives because it's similar. And then there's something out there called caper berries, which are very large, similar in flavor, but they're actually a totally different little fruit. So you want to drain these very well. If you're going to be saving any of the capers, then you want to leave them in the juice. Like if you got a big jar, then you don't want to drain all the juice out. You only take out however many as you're going to use and then drain those really well. But you don't want to add in the brine from the capers into this sauce. It would be very salty, very briny. You would eat it like that, like shriveled up face. Remember those old commercials back in the 90s? I'm dating myself, but it would be overwhelmingly briny. Drain them, rinse them under cold water. Some of them come in salt. Have you seen those, Amy? They're actually not brine, they're kept in salt. Rinse them in multiple changes of cold water. Yeah. Very strong in flavor. So you don't need more than what you need. It's about a tablespoon. And it says you can rough chop them. It totally depends on like how big the capers that you got. Some of them are a little bit bigger, but it really does actually help invigorate the flavor. Like it awakens the flavor. It kind of helps release some of the natural stuff. It gets it started. So I'm just barely gonna like run my knife through about once. That's it. Rough chop that 1 tablespoon. So they look pretty whole still, but just kind of smashed up and a little bit rough chop. Go right in there. Salt and pepper, and then fresh dill. That's pretty key if you want it to be a dill flavored sauce. If you don't like dill, then leave the dill off. It's gonna still be a really delicious flavor. It's just gonna be very different. I know some people that, like me actually, dill is really great in some things, and then, in others it's kind of a little overpowering and overwhelming. You have to kind of know exactly how much you like or how much you want. If you like pickles, like if you like dill pickles, go to town on the dill seasoning. You're gonna really like it because dill pickles are an enhanced dill flavor. But if you just kind of like more of a little bit milder of that sort of licoricey dill, kind of anise, sort of fennel, it's very springtime and very fresh, but it is strong. So you can minimize the amount that's in this recipe based on how much you think you might like. What I would recommend doing when you're doing that, this calls for a whole tablespoon minced. That's a lot. I would start with about a half of that amount, taste it, and then see how you feel about dill. Dill is definitely something, it's kind of like cilantro. It's like herbs that they take over. They really will take over the flavor of everything else. And so if you don't like dill, you want to be careful with that. It's just one of those ingredients that if you haven't worked with very much, play with it until you know how much you like it. So I'm going to throw in, I'm only using about a half a tablespoon.
And if they were to use dried, how much would you suggest?
So instead of 1 tablespoon fresh, I would cut that in half, or 3/4. So like a half a tablespoon or 3/4 of a tablespoon of dry, just because the dry has the flavor really condensed. So it's actually a little bit more pungent. So you use a little bit less of almost any dried herb than you would the fresh version. Good question. Okay, that is the sauce. Like that's literally this delicious sauce. It's super easy to make. It's super delicious. It lasts a very long time in your fridge, especially if you don't put in that much dill. The capers and the lemon juice are extremely acidic and well preserved with salt and stuff, and so they're going to last a pretty good amount of time in this yogurt sauce. You could make this for like a week if you like it on chicken, if you like it mixed in with like a salad, if you use this as sort of a tartar sauce with like homemade fish sticks, really, really, really good. So this is a straightforward but delicious, kind of beautiful, rustic looking little yogurt sauce. So it's hard to tell because it's white on white, huh? Here, I'll put it in a different bowl to pack it out so you can kind of see the blend of colors. But all you want to make sure is that you chop up the capers, that you make sure you get lots of that lemon zest and flavor in there. And then obviously garlic is a key ingredient here. So you want to either mince it extremely finely or grate it on the microplane that you use to zest the lemon. Then you get that really nice kind of broken down garlic consistency. You can also pound it in a mortar and pestle and make a paste out of it and then mix it in. Just don't leave it in really big chunks of garlic because then you're not going to have a well dispersed flavor and you're going to bite into raw garlic. It's not going to really kind of become part of the sauce. So just as long as you get it nice and finely chopped up, that's what you're looking for on the garlic to go into this yogurt dip. It's really, really great when it's dolloped on top of the salmon. I'm going to put together a small plate when we're done before class is over so you can kind of see how I would present this in a nice way. I know I've talked about that before. Presenting your food to yourself is really key. You go to all the work of making it, you might as well plate it really nicely, right? So we've got our salmon and our sauce. Those are kind of two of the key parts of our meal prep this week. The other two that I want to demo, as long as we can get to them, we might be able to even get some more. The veggies that I listed on the shopping guide and the menu, it's literally cauliflower, broccolini, and tomatoes. You can get any kind of tomato. I got cherry. You can get any color cauliflower. I got white because it was cheapest. You can get broccolini, which is Italian baby broccoli with nice broccoli crowns on long stems. You can get regular broccoli. I actually couldn't find either this morning, so I got something called rapini. I'm going to show that to you. Rapini is something also called broccoli rabe. I think it's R-A-B-E with an accent. Let's see if this label has anything that says, yes, broccoli rabe, R-A-B, also known as rapini. So this also has long, thick stems like broccolini does. It also has broccoli-style florets and crowns. What's different about rapini is it's got very dark leafy greens. So broccoli greens, broccolini greens, are bitter. They're very, very strong. This vegetable, if you just chopped it up and ate it raw, would be unpleasant unless you love black coffee and dark chocolate and all of those kinds of things. And some people do. So then you would love this. Rapini is best either sauteed or roasted. And so in this situation, exchanging it for broccolini or broccoli for me is fine. And I'm extremely sensitive to bitter. I would normally like just skip the broccoli, but roasting it at a super high temperature with the cauliflower and tomatoes, drizzle it with olive oil, it just gets chopped down. I'll show you that. I'm not sure I'm gonna get to be able to finish roasting it all today, but I don't know if I don't want to pass up the opportunity to show you a new ingredient and how you can use it. So all you would do, you see this here, is take off any of the very thick and woody stems, just like with almost anything else. Just chop about 1 inch to 1.5 inches off the ends. Great for the compost, great for a veggie stock, great for something like that. And then you're left with basically very, very, very dark leafy broccoli greens and rapini broccoli heads. So it's in the same family, much more bitter, full of nutrition. The darker the greens, right, Amy? Usually the more bitter, the better.
Often. Yeah. So broccolini, I was curious to know, like, what is it, right? We call it, you know, baby broccoli, but it really is not. It's a cross between regular broccoli and Chinese broccoli. Yes. It's actually a little bit more mild in flavor and less bitter than regular broccoli. So that would be kind of on the low end of bitterness, with this Rabi being the higher end of the bitterness. Yeah. But yeah, I've never used it. So yeah, I'm anxious to see how you prepare it here.
These stems, the stems to the rapini they're bitter, but actually kind of like broccoli and broccolini, the stems are less bitter than the florets. The darker floret are slightly more bitter, even on regular broccoli. And the stems are just ever so slightly sweeter. That's also true in this case, but it's hard to notice because the whole plant is quite bitter. And I don't want to say this like just to scare anyone off. I am the most sensitive to bitter than you'll ever know. And I can eat this. I can incorporate this into my food, and especially when it's roasted really well, leaves and all, you just let it roast with the tomatoes, and they're gonna burst and extract all their flavor, and the olive oil and salt and pepper, and then you just toss it all together. And at the end of the week, you know, or throughout the week, you eat it with like a dollop of that yogurt sauce on top, or you just mix it right into the quinoa salad, or you just mix it right into the chickpea salad. Lots of different ways to use it, lots of different ways to incorporate it into things, and all you do is this. You just chop it up. I just literally chopped across the stems and through the leaves and through the florets, and you're left with this big, lovely mix of greens that you can roast with your vegetables. You can braise them like you would with like mustard greens, you know, or collard greens. Because they are a hardy, leafy green. So they're really great. I used to work for a company. We would use this and saute this down with mushrooms and Parmesan and peppers, and that was like the base for a creamy vegetable pasta. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with it, and it's a really great, healthy addition. And like she said, that's the perfect way to kind of describe the spectrum. Regular broccoli, sort of right in the middle if you've got kids that refuse to eat it because it's still too bad tasting. Then broccolini, baby broccoli, or what they call Italian broccoli, there's a lot of names for it, is less bitter. And then this is much more bitter. So you've got a spectrum of really amazing stuff that you can use, and you can use them pretty similarly in lots of different ways. The one difference is this has all those leafy greens, so it comes into play when you are thinking about using greens in your diet, not just using broccoli. So
high fiber.
About it.
Broccoli is a cruciferous vegetable too, so it seems to have anti-cancer properties, as does the cauliflower. So, and also super high in vitamin C. We often think of citrus fruits, right, like the lemon juice or the oranges as being high in vitamin C, but broccoli also is quite high in vitamin C and vitamin K.
That's awesome. Oh, I love when I find out about things that have vitamin K, because you never hear about that. And then you're like, how do I even get that? I love that. Okay, so I am going to start my quinoa. It should only take about 20 minutes, so before class is done, I'll actually be able to show you. Just because if some people haven't made quinoa or have messed up when making quinoa, which I have, we can just kind of walk through it together. This is one way that it's really helpful to make it. You can kind of pearl the quinoa. So we're going to toast it a little bit first. So we want to turn our pot on. I've got this on again, medium to medium low. I don't want to burn the quinoa, and I certainly don't want it to like boil over while it's cooking too much.
And there is a question, I think this was referring to the broccoli, which dish or recipe? These are just roasted vegetables that you're doing, right? That you could use in a variety of ways.
The veggies,
it's not a recipe.
Exactly. And I just wanted to show you the broccoli, the rabe, because I bought a different ingredient and I kind of wanted to introduce you guys to that. I'm not sure I'm going to even get to the roasted vegetables during the demo. There isn't a recipe for it. It's literally chop up the cauliflower, the broccolini, and the cherry tomatoes and put them on a sheet pan with some olive oil and salt and pepper. Roast it at 400 degrees until tender. And then you've got roasted vegetables to mix with all of the other different things that we've got to prep throughout the week. And I will try to walk through that as we get to, I just want to get this quinoa going and then the chickpea salad, and then I'm going to talk about the veggies for sure. So quinoa, it's important to rinse it. The bag should say that. If it doesn't, then the brand is maybe a little sketchy, because it should always tell you to rinse the quinoa under cold water in like a strainer, a really fine mesh strainer, so it doesn't just pour through, and make sure that the water runs clear and you don't have any like little rocks or pieces of grass or any weird stuff like that. And you've got your rinsed quinoa. Bring up your pot, get it warm, add a teeny tiny bit of extra virgin olive oil. I think I said, yeah, about a tablespoon and a half. Because what we're going to be doing is pearling the quinoa. So this is already hot. I'm going to add this in, right? Add the quinoa and cook. So this pearling method, you do this with rice for pilaf too. What it does is it toasts the grains, and then that makes it so that they individually cook instead of sticking together in one giant clump. So I'm going to add in water, oregano, thyme, and rosemary. I need 2 cups of water.
Quinoa is one of my favorite grains just because it's high in protein, higher than the other grains. It's actually a seed, but we call it grain usually. And it contains all the essential amino acids, so it is a complete protein. And it has about 8 grams of protein per cup, which is about what you get in an ounce of meat. And it's very high in fiber. It has 5 grams a cup. There are different kinds. Like I like the red quinoa for certain dishes, and
the mixed color one and the tricolor one is my favorite, I think, just because it's the most visually interesting, and then you're getting like the combination of any of the benefits that they might have different from each other. Do they have different?
I would imagine that they do have slightly different nutrition composition. Protein probably the same. But color, you know, when colors are different, it usually is because they have different phenols, different phytochemicals in them that give the color. So perhaps they're slightly different in that respect. With all the herbs, you know, it's amazing to me. Herbs actually have a lot of antimicrobial and antibacterial properties. So historically, they're used for food preservation a lot of times. And so they are plant compounds, right? And so they do have a lot of protection that is bestowed upon the plant, right? And so putting them in our food actually can help decrease bacteria, microbes, and also add a lot of flavor, but also antioxidants and other things that are beneficial to our health.
Yeah. It's a really fun addition. If you normally, we would have potatoes or rice. Potatoes or rice, potatoes or rice, potatoes or rice, potatoes or rice. That was a lot of the sort of starch or grain or, you know, carb that went along with the plates on my plates growing up, and that's okay, you know, not all bad, but integrating lots of other kinds of whole grains and lots of other different kinds of things not only makes cooking and eating more fun, but like she's saying, this has so much more for it than maybe just a cup of rice or a cup of potato. And even if those things are still good for us, having this once in a while instead of that every single time goes a very long way to making us more holistically healthy. So you want to get this up to a boil. Once it's up to a boil, even with all the little herbs floating on top, I added in dried oregano, thyme, and rosemary. Dried rosemary can be kind of long, so just kind of crumbling it up between your fingers a little bit so that it is not so big, but it also helps to get more of the flavor out. Once this comes up to a boil, put the lid on, turn it down all the way to a simmer, and let it cook for about 15 minutes. That's quinoa. It's going to, like rice, maybe boil up, just kind of adjust your heat. You want it to absorb all of the water. We're going to get to the point where it absorbs almost all of the water, and then you can add in some fresh ingredients like parsley and lemon. We really are loving our lemon in this Mediterranean diet. But we don't want to add that at the beginning because that can actually affect the cooking process, and the fresh parsley will end up turning black if it's cooked in this for 15 minutes. So we only want to throw that in at the very end so that it can just sort of absorb in the final moments of absorption. And then that's the quinoa. So I'm going to watch the clock. In about 12 more minutes, I'm just going to sort of take the lid off, make sure that I'm almost absorbed, which sounds water. The quinoa has almost absorbed all of the water, and then we're adding in some of that other stuff. The last thing that I want to kind of demonstrate before we move into anything else we can get to is this chickpea salad. There's a lot of recipes online and out in cookbooks and out from other chefs of Mediterranean chickpea salads and different ways you can marinate them or have them. You can use variations of this recipe, or you can go find your own if this really doesn't appeal to you. This is my favorite because it is kind of more of a salad. You can just marinate your chickpeas so that they go really well with lots of things, and that's great. But then you kind of have to think about, what does this go with tonight? Instead, if you've had a really, really long night, but you still need to feel full and you still need good protein, but you don't want to cook anything at all, having this completely made and ready to go is such a quick fix and such a delicious thing because it has the veggies in it, has a little bit of feta in it, has that really, really good flavor already built up. And the longer it sits in the fridge, like up to 5 or 6 days, the better it's going to taste. The more it marinates, the better flavor that it develops throughout the week. So you can make as much as you want if you've got a really big family. If you leave the feta out and just put all of the other stuff in and the marinade, you can actually freeze it. And then you can pull that out, thaw it out, add in some feta, you've got a whole nother salad this week. It's a really, really versatile thing to have around. If you get too much chickpeas, which, is there ever such a thing? You can freeze those plain. chickpeas like in the liquid that it comes in a can. You can keep it in the liquid or water if you pour out that liquid. Keep it in some sort of liquid and throw it in the freezer, airtight container. That'll last for weeks. So sometimes they come in those big cans of chickpeas, and it's actually really cost effective. You can pull them right out of the freezer. You can have them ready to go, or you can make your own chickpeas from scratch, which is awesome, and then freeze in individual batches, and then you have them flavored with however much flavor you like. Because when they come in a can, they're super plain, right? If you cook them, you can cook them with onion and garlic and paprika and cinnamon sticks and all kinds of deliciousness. So making them from scratch is a great way to go. I've got some canned.
Great source of protein to have hanging around, right? So you could throw it on a salad, throw it in a wrap, put it in a curry. Lots of great ways to just add some protein, add quite a bit of fiber. There's about 6.5 grams cup. So really great source of fiber.
You always break out the idea of the curry. I always forget about that. Such a good idea. And these are so great. There's so many different things that I would have made with meat or chicken. You don't necessarily need it every single time. Chickpeas are, they've got really good filling texture, and they really take to flavor. So
you have a recipe, I don't know if it's up yet on the website, for like a roasted chickpea, like as a snack, which is also a great idea.
Yes. Our baked crispy chickpeas. I don't think it's on the website yet, but it will be by the end of this week. It's a really good snack. It's a really, really, really yummy snack, you guys, yeah. Just baked chickpeas. You can fry them, but that's not great for us, so baking them goes a long way. And then you can just toss them up with spices, and in fact, I have a few different recipes. Maybe I'll put them all on the website because they all have different spice blends. You can make like a Moroccan chickpea spice. You can make super cayenne spicy chickpeas. There's a lot of different things. So I want to show you this salmon. We got our nice crispy skin that was still inside up. And then I got that really nice caramelized browning sauteing on the other side while it was in the oven. But it's still nice and flaky. It's gonna pull apart really nicely. It's tender. Not super dried out at this point. You just let it cool down to room temperature and put it away in your fridge once it's cooled down. If you're doing this only for meal prep, if you're going to eat some of it later, then go ahead and leave that out. But that is important to let it cool down all the way before you try to, let's see, put it in your fridge. Don't put it in your fridge while it's hot at all. Very, very dangerous. I think I can scoop the quinoa. Scoot over here. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. Our delicious marinated chickpea salad. When I make this and I have the cooked quinoa, this is all I eat. I just mix the chickpea salad into the quinoa and just have that as a bowl. That's pretty much my lunch all week when I make this stuff, because then I can have the salmon kind of flaked on top, or I can have it by itself, maybe a little dollop of the yogurt sauce as like the dressing if I want, plus all that baby spinach and kale, which I mix together as my sort of salad greens for the week. Those are dark leafy greens, pretty bitter, but when you put all of this like really rich flavor and really, really, really delicious creamy textures of the chickpeas and the yogurt and all that stuff, the bitterness is gone. It's magic. It's amazing. So salads, bowls, wraps, plates, however you eat this stuff, mix and match all week, and it's really, really, there's just so many different possibilities. So this is, we're gonna add in some chopped bell pepper, some feta, basil, is in the fridge, red wine vinegar, olive oil, honey, and we're gonna make a dressing out of all of this goodness here. Feta, if you've never had feta, try it. It's a Greek sheep's milk cheese, and it is delicious. It's extremely salty, It is a very salted, aged cheese. So you don't need a lot, and that's why I kind of like it, because just a little bit of sprinkle on top and it takes the dish to another level, and adds tons of flavor, but you don't need to add lots and lots and lots of it. It's kind of like cotija, which to me is like a Mexican feta, very condensed, salty flavor, really, really powerful and delicious, but you don't need a lot, and it lasts a really long time. So I'm just gonna do a quick version of this salad. If you have not seen that before, you just cut the wall of the bell pepper off the center. You just cut around the core, and then you can cut your small dices out of your little strips here. So first you have what we call a plank, anything that's cut into like a wall. Then you cut your plank into strips, or in French they're called bâtons. Then you cut your bâton, which is your stick, into your dice. And that is how you dice anything. Start with a plank, cut into bâton, dice. I know I do that very fast. You don't have to do that fast. That's where my $50,000 in culinary school went. Knife skills. Lots and lots. It's 16 years of practice, too.
That's another one of those very high vitamin C foods. So
oh, yes.
one medium pepper has about 170% of your RDI for vitamin C, which is super great for our immune health. Peppers also are good in potassium, folate, vitamin K. So yeah, every single ingredient you're using is like a powerhouse, I would say, in this.
That's awesome. I feel like you probably have told me this before. Does it matter which color bell pepper, or does it have high vitamin C anyway?
So they all have high vitamin C. The antioxidant properties are slightly different. As I mentioned, the coloring kind of determines which antioxidants are high. So like I think the green ones have more like lutein, which is good for eye health, compared to the red have more vitamin A. So so they are slightly different, but overall they're all high in vitamin C.
Well, that's key, especially these days as we all try very hard to stay healthy. Feta, I'm going to show you this if you have never worked with feta. This is a Bulgarian feta that I got from the market near me. I live in Little Armenia, so I'm surrounded by some of the most incredible flavors and makers from around the world. I've got to open it though. It's like rocket science. Here we go. Okay, so this is how you're gonna get feta. In water. It's very, very full of water. You need to be very careful when you open your feta. Whether it comes in a little pouch or a little bag or a little container, it's gonna have a lot of water in it. So you need to open it either over the sink or a trash can, or you're gonna get a big puddle of like salty cheese water in your shoe. I have done that, it's not fun. So you wanna leave that water though, because I'm not using all of this cheese today. That would be ridiculous, right? You only need as much cheese as you're putting in your salad, and it usually comes in a block. This one has a little strip cut off because they were packing it all nicely into the tub, but it usually comes, I'll show you here, in one solid block of cheese. And then it crumbles nicely, it slices nicely, you can make really nice cubes out of it. I like a cubed feta and watermelon salad. Oh man, so good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's outstanding. It's really nice to add into a lot of your food. So I just want to kind of show you and get you comfortable with what that looks like, how you deal with it. I'm going to use that little strip and then one more. So you want to try to maintain its structure so that this can stay good inside the liquid in the tub. That water that it came in will help keep it longer and longer so that it doesn't go bad. It just kind of stays nice and creamy and aged, you know, nicely. But it crumbles perfectly. You just crumble it. So we want crumbles mixed in here. I'm gonna kind of leave them a little bit big in chunks because then when we mix this all together, it's going to get broken down further. If I already crumbled it into a fine dust now, then when we mix it up, it's just gonna actually turn into like a dressing. It's gonna smear over everything and get melty and not very distinct looking and pretty. So leave it in bigger chunks for now because then when you go to mix it all together, it's going to finish breaking down at that point. Anytime that you're adding in anything like that, where if it's going to turn into a very, very small product, try not to break it down fully in the beginning. It will continue to break down as you mix things. So we've got basil going in. If you haven't been in a class with us before, I want to show you this. Basil leaves are kind of annoying. How do you chop that all up and make it not annoying? Stack up your leaves in one stack, then roll it up. Okay, you've got this tight little straw of basil. Then you're going to cut across that. And this is called chiffonade, which is ribbons. So what you're getting out of the basil are these little ribbons, these strings of fresh basil. So we've got our chiffonade basil, and that's used as a garnish a lot. Like you make a nice tomato soup, sprinkle some chiffonade basil on top. We're going to continue chopping it up. So once you've got your chiffonade, bring it into a little bundle, and then just chop. Leaving the tip of your knife on the cutting board, chopping downward. Once you've got it really nicely chopped up, it doesn't have to be minced or tiny. What you're trying to do is extract all the flavor, kind of bruise it up, get it really broken down. And then it's going to spread out even more of that fresh basil flavor throughout the salad. Okay, so that's going to go right on top of the cheese in the bowl. Let's see, this calls for a lot of garlic. So we're going to put that in. Okay, garlic, tons of garlic. And you do definitely want to make sure that it is grated if you can, or like finely minced if you have the jar kind or the squeeze cube kind, or you want to make a paste out of it, that's great. Again, same thing, you really want to spread out the flavor in a fine way, not have big chunky pieces of garlic. So add in the garlic can be part of the dressing, it can be added into this, it actually doesn't really matter. The dressing is olive oil, about 1/3 of a cup, red wine vinegar. I guess you could substitute like an apple cider vinegar, but red wine is definitely the way to go. It has a really specific flavor, and it's used in a lot of Mediterranean food. About 1/4 cup of that. We've got our honey. And it's just about a tablespoon. You can do even a little bit less if sugar is something that you're watching in your family. This just helps round out the balanced flavor, but that much honey for all of this salad all week long is pretty minuscule amount of sugar when you're thinking about how much you're gonna get in a pre-made jar of something like this. It's gonna be a lot worse probably, right, Amy, I would think?
Yes, yep. Yeah, that small amount is not gonna really contribute much compared to some of the other things in our diet that are quite high.
Yeah, I have an issue with Mexican Coke. What do you do? It's just so delicious. And when you're having those tacos, right? Come on. They knew what they were doing. Little bit of black pepper, a little bit of salt. You got your dried oregano in there. That's really important in this. Oregano is one of the main herbs in Mediterranean cooking, which is fantastic because we already had it in our pantry for making our Southwest food. You can see how a lot of these different flavors mix and match. You could actually throw a little cumin in here and it would only make it better. It would definitely go very, very well with this idea. Thought I had a whisk. Oh, I do. So that's the dressing. Red wine vinegar, olive oil, garlic, honey, oregano, salt, pepper. If you've got red pepper flakes and you like spicy things in your life, then you should definitely add some into this. But then you're making your entire chickpea salad a little bit of a kick, right? So you need to kind of think about that, and while you're meal prepping, if you want this chickpea salad to be spicy all week long, then add it. If you want to be able to change that, then you can always add in your pepper flakes, you know, as you mix it on Thursday night. So meal prepping and thinking about those things goes a long way. Well,
Julia, how long could you keep a dressing like that?
weeks.
Like a week? Oh, weeks. Okay.
Like 3 probably. If you've got a tight little jar, it's dried herbs and olive oil and vinegar. So there's nothing that's going to go bad. If you have fresh herbs in here, then those might turn blackish, but they still won't rot per se. That's what the oil and vinegar does. It really will preserve it for a good amount of time. You might actually get strong flavors. The garlic will actually like start to get stronger over time. But yeah, you just kind of keep it in a jar, mix it back up, let that oil emulsify back into the dressing. It'll last for weeks. Same thing with like that Chipotle dressing and some of our other dressings we've made. They last a very long time. That's why I actually like to make vinaigrettes with dried seasonings and herbs, because it helps them last longer. So we've got all of our stuff in here. I'm gonna just add in the dressing. That's literally, you wanted to just kind of make the dressing separately so that you can make sure that it tastes really good. Taste it first, then add it into your chickpea salad, making sure that you're scraping it all out. You want all that delicious honey and flavor. And then we're going to use our kind of folding method, bringing it up from the bottom and up over the top. Oops, runaway chickpea. So you see in this process that the feta is getting more broken down and spread out and dispersed. So we want to let that happen now so that it is not just turning into like a paste on our food. All right. Oh, so bright. It smells so good. I wish you could smell it. This chickpea salad mixed with this quinoa with the herbs in it, just actually tossed together on top of a bed of the spinach and kale. That's my lunch every day. When I have this around, it's so hard to pass up. It's ready, 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 go. But there's lots of different things you can put them together. Like we were talking about the wraps or sandwiches, or Amy always has such amazing ideas for how to use these things, like curries and different stuff. I love that.
I love the feta. I love using feta because it is such a strong flavor. So you don't need to use as much, right? If you're using like a mild cheddar or something like that, like it takes a lot of the cheese before you even taste it, right? So I often suggest that people choose a very strong flavored cheese so that you get all that flavor with a smaller quantity.
Yeah. That's why I like cooking with Parmesan a lot too, because it's very low in fat. It's been aged for so long, but it's such a strong flavor that you don't really need tons of it, which is really, really nice. So quinoa is one of those things. Where did it go? You want to fluff it with a fork. You want to make sure that it's got, I've still got just a tiny bit of absorption that needs to happen. There's not a pooling of water, but I can tell that the quinoa is still a little bit wet. It could be a little, just like it's going to cook for maybe 2 more minutes, right? So at this point, all I want to do is add in fresh lemon and fresh parsley. So, and then you're going to just let that cook, or even just kind of like heat for 2 minutes tops. You don't want it to be overdone. You don't want it to be dried out. And you definitely don't want your parsley to get black. I realize I just did something that I actually probably want to show you. When you have herbs on a stem, I've done this with cilantro before, but when you have herbs on a stem that you can grab like this, the stem is usable. Parsley and cilantro stems are perfectly edible, perfectly usable, but there can be kind of thick So if you don't want to worry about chopping that all down, and all you want is the leaves, take your nice sharp knife, drag it horizontally against the stems, and it will remove pretty much just the leaves, if not like some of the very fine ends of the stem. But then you're going to be left with the really thick stems in your hand, and you're left with all this nice parsley leaves right here. So then you just bring it together in a bunch, knife on the cutting board, and nice and safe on top. Chop, 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 chop. Again, the more you chop it, the darker in color it will start to look, because you're actually bruising the leaves while you break them up. And so they become bruised, they start to extract water, they start to get actually a little bit soggy, especially if your knife is just a little bit dull. If your knife is a little bit dull and you try to chop fresh herbs, they're going to turn a little bit darker in color because your knife is just kind of breaking them instead of chopping them. So sharp knives is really key. But let's see. I think I put my lemons away, guys. I don't know what I was thinking.
So parsley is another one of those. We got several foods this week that are high in vitamin K. So 2 tablespoons has over 100% of your vitamin K requirements. Vitamin K is often associated with blood clotting. So we need good blood clotting, but also some people are on blood thinners. If you've had a heart attack or something and you might be on a blood thinner to prevent clotting, then you need to make sure that you don't have too much vitamin K in the diet. So so that would be my only hesitation if you have warfarin or some other type of medication that you're taking to thin your blood. Otherwise, vitamin K is a great source of nutrients that help our blood to clot, which is important if you cut yourself or something like that, especially in the kitchen.
Very, very important. I've counted on that skill in my body many, many times. All right, so I've got about a tablespoon of lemon juice in there, some fresh chopped parsley. I'm going to get that mixed in just barely. Get that back on the heat for, like I said, tops 2 minutes. Just until it actually kind of like absorbs the lemon juice and the parsley into it. That is basically what we have time for. The veggies, if you do have specific questions, this is always 400-degree oven. Line your sheet tray with foil. Put your chopped veggies on the foil, drizzle with olive oil, extra virgin preferably. If you've got a canola oil blend or a vegetable oil, perfectly fine too. Season with salt and pepper. Roast until fork tender. That's it. Let it cool off and then pack it away in a reusable bag or a container, and you've got veggies to mix and match and put on your plate all week long, which is really a bonus. So I'm gonna put together a small little display plate really quickly. I know we've got to go. Just as a quick example, you can see that the quinoa is fluffed. The parsley has mixed in. I'm going to put a little dollop of quinoa. Some of my, this salad is delicious. Right on top, let it fall all over. Here we are. And some of our delicious dip. Those capers, all that flavor is going to be so good. Voila, voila. Doesn't take much. A little bit of extra effort. Doesn't that look nice?
Beautiful. Very Mediterranean, delicious.
Yes, very healthy. This is the thing, packed with flavor. Packed with flavor. You're not going to eat and go, oh, this is healthy. It is so flavorful and fresh and vibrant and energizing and filling and full of all of the amazing things that Amy has taught us so much about today. So if you have any specific questions about the recipes that I sent out or about any of the ingredients this week, please don't hesitate. You can email me or reach out on Instagram. If you have any more questions about the nutrition, about anything that we've done through this course, I'm sure Amy is happy to still help. Today is our last class, you guys.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun this summer. This has been a really fun 6-week program. You have some pretty great resources in terms of shopping lists and recipes. Whatever your favorites were, mix and match them, like I like to say, play around with all those different flavors. Once you have those general spices and herbs and oils in your pantry, your meal prep is going to go a lot easier and your food's going to be a lot tastier and you're going to have a lot more fun because you're going to spend a lot less time in the kitchen. So
many delicious recipes that you've provided. And I did put the link to the teaching kitchen there. Someone was asking access to the recordings. It sometimes takes a little while for them to appear there, but eventually they will be there. But all the recipes are on that site. So you can always refer back to that.
Thank you so much for putting that in there. There is a full catalog with recipes, and I'll make sure that any of the ones from the last couple of weeks have been input ASAP. Like she said, the videos, sometimes it takes a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
You're welcome. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for being in class. It was so
We're going to go to the kids one on Wednesday.
Okay. Okay, well then I'll see you on Wednesday. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, but